Good afternoon. This is David with Mike to Market, and I have the pleasure today of bringing one of my longtime clients that I've been working with for a while, Heidi. I'm going to let her introduce herself a little bit more and talk a little bit about her, and then hit the highlights of some of the subjects we're going to go over today. I'll turn it over to you, Heidi.
Thank you, David. Yes, I'm Heidi Klansnick, and I am a realtor with Coldwell Banker Bain. I work out of both the Mercer Island and Bellevue offices. I've been in the business full-time since 2012. I started a little earlier than that, though, in real estate. I've been in real estate since the early 80s. I was a commercial real estate appraiser for 13 years, then took some time off, went back to be a full-time mom, and then jumped back in for another 3 years in the commercial appraisal business and with my own firm. When the recession hit in the 2010, 2010, 2011, there was a need out there for teams. Teams were forming to help people purchase investment properties. And my background in real estate, commercial real estate especially, was very useful. But then when classic real estate started being sold as the economy got better and better, I jumped in both feet. I've been selling ever since. Just love it.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
wonderful.
And love it.
It's been quite a interesting ride over the last two decades of real estate. That's for sure.
Yeah. So I've seen both sides. A very, very bad economy. That's very
excellent. So today on Mike to Market, we're going to kind of hit the highlights on the social media arena for real estate brokers and how to begin digging much deeper into how to take advantage of social media and getting to buyers where they are and what has been traditional successes in the past for marketing and promoting both themselves as a broker and their listings, as well as some critical points of moving into the social media arena and how to get their foot in the door and potentially look at 2025 of breaking a few thresholds and where to start and the fears and getting past that.
Well, I think more and more leads and clients and potential clients out there are doing everything online first. They're doing all their research online first. So if you can get in front of them with marketing materials or updates on the market, just so they are aware of what kind of the housing market is doing, but giving them information they couldn't find elsewhere. So giving them unique information. I like that. I do follow a couple people on Instagram who do a fabulous job of weekly updates market. That's a very useful tool.
In your experience, more so in the last 1 to 2 years, with buyers that have come to you to find a place to live, with buyers that you encounter whenever you have a listing, you had pretty good volume of listings this last year. Mm-hmm. Wonderful that were any of those buyer engagements kind of leading them down a direction that this is how they either discovered your listing or how they got the information? Because what I'm seeing and hearing on that side is a little bit different than for a broker. I get contacted a lot from our clients that are all brokers asking, what am I hearing and seeing? And I'm very curious, the same question, the other direction. Well, and where you're connecting buyers and what I call meeting buyers where they're at before they come to where you are at, broker. And that's kind of the purpose of this type of programming, is to talk about how to bridge that gap. We can do to support, work with, and meeting buyers where they're at to get.
Right. And I think social media should play a big role. And that's using your connections, whether it be whatever age group you're working with. So great example is like my largest sphere of friends are all downsizing. They're getting older. They don't want the maintenance any longer. Sure. So those are great sellers, but their kids who are all in their late 20s, early 30s are all wanting to start for a purchase.
Right.
So connecting in the mode that the kids use the most is social media. I think that's where I need to get my face involved a lot more. And and not rely upon the referrals coming from my age group. Those of us who are older.
We're both in that same boat, so I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
So I think that appeal of having the ability to put yourself out there, those, I call them kids, but my kids are in their late 20s, early 30s.
Right.
They need to know you're okay with, videoing and putting your face on camera.
Sure.
And
Are you?
I will be okay with it. I'm getting there.
You're warming up to it.
I'm warming
You're warming
up to it.
Where
Yes.
You're taking a big step right
Yes.
now, actually. On the social media front, in comparison to what is traditional marketing, there's typically and historically over the last 2+ decades, everything has been either a print media source like a magazine or publication to let the general population know out there, or connecting through mailer of some sort.
Correct.
It's a postcard process or a monthly mailing of some type. And there's a lot of various different things. A calendar once a year, or there's quarterly things that go out, monthly things that go out that keep you as the broker at the forefront sphere of mailing. Have you had any strong positive experience on those really in the last 2 to 3 years with this big pivot to digital social media arena for buyers? Because as you're saying, the buyer population, although people downsizing, still have to live somewhere.
Correct.
So they're still
homeowners.
buyers, but they have a bit of an advantage because they're kind of shifting down the scale. So they have a lot more control of where they choose to buy it. But it's the new buyer that's coming up that's not getting information from where previous generation grew up.
That's correct. I would say the buyer population, for the most part, are those who are doing their own research. And so, mailers are tailored to the current homeowners, as you said. So getting in front of a buyer is more about making sure you're connecting with people in the neighborhood.
Sure.
Who are, say, just the open houses, for example, is a great example of why it's important to attend or host these open houses for either on your listings or on others, so that you have that opportunity to meet these people coming in the door. And then you understand what kind of product they're looking for.
Right.
And I think our company web pages and things like that are a good resource for buyers who are looking for homes. And the more often that they see your name, the better.
In the world of advertising, repetition is,
Yes.
and
Yes.
staying at the forefront of that repetition, valuable information that they find useful, I think, is the partner there.
That's right. And
So-
being a partner, that's a good point, is one who can provide resources. And so that's one of the very first things out of the gate. And when we engage with buyers is to understand who they are and why they're looking, but also get them the right resources that they're going to need to move forward with lending and title.
Have you, I'm not sure how much of the buyer side you've had, yeah, lots of things that you've been selling, but obviously as a broker, you represent neither side of the transaction.
Correct.
I think. With your buyers and the buyers that you've met through listing, have you encountered any that are just completely in the dark process?
Yes.
And,
yes.
What you do to bring them along.
Education. Yeah, we are educators. We have to understand this is their biggest money transaction they will probably endure for the rest of their life. And it's scary. Very, very scary for them. So you have to be calm and be a sounding board and answer every question and educate them on that process. And one of the things that is very important is to make sure you listen. Listen very closely to their concerns. I think, what school district they want to be in, the safety of some of the neighborhoods, how much maintenance do they want to endure?
Right.
Whether it be for a single family detached house, are they ready for all the yard work?
Right.
The maintenance of a home that they will incur, or do they want to lock and leave it with a townhome?
Sure.
Or a condo? So those are things that you work through to find out what their needs
are. How many have you encountered that have been on the opposite end of that spectrum, that have come through the door fully armed with all of the information, and they've done their homework, they're very informed, they know the school districts, they know the area, the geographic.
They're your ideal buyer.
Sure.
But still, there are things surprising, especially if it's been quite a few years since they've purchased, that have changed. We've just the processes that we have to put in place these days to conform to state laws. There's a lot more paperwork involved with buyers now, and just being upfront about being transparent with everything that we do in our job, and that's very important.
Has that encountered many challenges as far as some of the changes that have gone on? A bit more crossing all the T's, dotting all the I's from the buyer's perspective. Historically, the buyer relationship has been a lot more free-handed, shall we say?
Yes. Yes.
Compared to more recently. Have you seen any real concerns or questions with buyers?
It is all for the good. It's
good.
And truthfully, nothing in that process or in the information that was put out there has changed. It's been available, but now it's on paper. And
now some of it's more required option.
Correct.
I guess.
Yes, that's right. And so it's just more about the value proposition. You have to really just sell yourself as a buyer's agent, in which for buyers could really just sort of shop around it to us.
I can remember as a young person looking for my very first home, and I won't say how long ago this was. My employer at the time, who was also a good friend, gave me advice on finding a home and working with a broker. And I was told, well, you're not really obligated to any one broker. So when you're looking, talk to 2 or 3 of them and let them all do searches for you in the house. And I didn't end up doing that. That to me seemed confusing on the buyer. Now, being in the industry so long, I'm like, that's probably the worst advice you can give somebody who's a first time experience, because you rely so much on the relationship and the confidentiality and privileged information you have to share to put an offer in for it to be, valued and considered. It's kind of amazing to me that people, and I've encountered that people still have a little bit of that mindset that talk to 2 or 3 brokers and get 2 or 3 looking. And I always tell them, well, those 2 or 3 are all looking at the same database. They're all looking at the same resources. So you're not doing yourself any favor.
That's right.
By not establishing.
Yeah. Establishing trust with one broker. Be interesting to see what happens very first part of the year. What effect the president will have on economy and real estate.
Sure.
So I think we are all resigned to the fact that we're not ever going to interest rates during the pandemic.
Right.
That hopefully we get back into the 6s, that the 6s is the new norm. Maybe we'll see 5% again.
Right.
But the reality is the affordability is so different. And we need to really work these buyers who are comfortable within their price points.
Right.
That they're not stretching too far and putting themselves at risk.
Correct.
One of the things that we may see, I think, in 2025 are the buyers bought of 21, 22.
Right.
And really stretched. And they were paying 25% over asking price in the multiple offer situation every single during those times, those of us who have buyers, we were educating them to the fact that this is going to be a 10-year hold. in order for you to get appreciation and build more equity in this home.
Sure. Especially with that, as far over asking as we saw.
As we saw. Yes. I think in 2025, unfortunately, we're going to see some short sales. We're going to see some folks who are forced to move, have to, for one reason, life change or another.
Right.
And they're not, right. We're still working many neighborhoods, working to get back up those numbers. And I've seen already a couple situations where people are really having to make that hard decision to sell, and because they way over asking price.
One of the big things I've heard repeatedly over the last years from that specific buyer graphic time, who are now sellers, trying to cover as much as they can, having accepted they're going to take a loss technically they paid, is one of the fundamental reasons why they're to get out of the house is it ended up being far more of a commitment, not just the purchase price and mortgage payment, but everything else that they didn't really consider.
Correct.
They made such a they went from what I'll call a typical home to a not typical home with vastly more space and more upkeep and more amenities that they weren't even prepared to consider.
Correct. Many were apartment dwellers.
Right.
Into buying a big 4 or 5 bedroom single family home. I did understand what all is involved.
Right. That electricity bill is going to be more, and the property taxes are going to be more. And then you get the pools and the amenities on top of it and maintenance. Keeping all of this in perspective as far as this information, moving into communicating this more in a digital media arena. One of the leading pieces of information gathering that we're seeing on our side is so much of the social media engagement. And I'm not sure from a broker standpoint and how to incorporate all of what is truly social. A lot of people define social media as Facebook, and social media engagement in itself covers vastly more territory than it. And this particular form that we're working with today, I mean, this is a YouTube podcast, so this is going to go out to a lot of ability for engagement. And one of the things that we do in the studio whenever we do have guests in the studio is target what they're doing as a broker so that they get to walk out with social media posts of their participation that they could make to their advantage. Talking about specific details, talking about it, so that you yourself would have a way to engage.
Conversations with those of us who always had this fear of social media. I think it's more about getting too comfortable with your book.
Sure.
That had just referrals have been lifeblood for many of us.
Right.
And truly, the referral business can only go so far, particularly when the dynamics of the population are changing, and you are changing just in your sphere of influence, whether it be because you've moved or because you're getting older and people are moving and others have, not yourself necessarily you, but you have a group of friends who are all kind of moving away out of that particular neighborhood. So I think it's the fear of just yourself out there and the persona that you are the one needs to be called. Pick up the phone, call me. Instead of it being the phone call that you received because so-and-so said they should call you. Don't stop doing the type of materials or advertising that you would normally do or what you did last year.
Right.
Just add this on. And I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of change the results.
Sure.
Hopefully positive.
You bring up a good point about utilizing social media as an addition to, not a replacement for.
Correct.
Because in the world of marketing and advertising in general, the points of measurement historically have been an isolated line of data based on something very specific that was put into. If you send out a postcard to 100 people, for example, you can then measure the response of that depending on how many people react to your information. Right. It's obviously going to take far more than 100 postcards. Let's be clear about that. But seeing the digital media get into that arena for brokers and making connections on a different level does have the ability to expand your audience exponentially. And having the information, like we talked before, that's valued educational information on more than just how to look for a house and then connect with whoever's listing the house or find a broker, but really educating yourself in the process, whether it's what's happening in the mortgage arena, what's happening in the demographics or the geography of where you're moving, how to find out that information, how to contact, looking for that information. I think that level of repetition is going to be in the social media arena for brokers so that they can maintain the go-to directive as being that resource information.
That's right. That's right. And you had asked me earlier about what I've seen that I appreciate. And that's one of the main, I love those who have taken graphs and information showing the buyer population when is the best time to,
right?
Based on data, here's what we are seeing. This is why this is the best time to buy.
Right.
And for sellers, when is the best time to list? So I think, there's so much information that should be shared. I think social media is a great way to do it.
Is there any concern on how to interpret that data to a buyer so that it's more, it can be absorbed on a more user-friendly level? Because some of it can be very intimidating.
I would say keep it simple. I have always assumed that I used to use this internally in my business for years, is assume somebody is until they prove themselves otherwise.
Right.
And so you got to keep everything very simple.
Right.
And make it something that they can just absorb, get their teeth around, and don't over give what the message that you're trying to provide.
Sure.
It needs to be super simple, something they can understand.
What in your evaluation or review of getting into the social media arena, where do you have questions? What's kind of triggering your pause and your questions and your fears about getting into, other than getting in front of a camera and just talk?
I guess in general, it would just be the technology itself and making sure I do the right steps to have it portray and upload and go out there correctly.
Right.
It's just because I feel like everything keeps changing. Just like you get a new cell phone update. The updates make everything look so different. I get nervous about thinking about whatever post I'm going to put up, that it's going to not look good.
That's a common fear, is you over-index on, or what I call analysis paralysis of, did I cover enough? Did I cover too much? Even more so than how do you look, or the images that you've chosen, or the location that you've chosen. Is it relevant? The big misconception in that arena is whenever people are viewing that information, it's a captive audience, and keeping it very simple and direct, and everything else is way overthinking. But all of that overthinking is where all of our fears also lie. It's very hard initially, which it does wear off, but it's very hard initially to kind of pull the trigger and get in front of your camera and just start talking. And I heard some really great recommendations from somebody who is a very experienced online presence. And what they always recommend to do is just grab your phone and just start recording. And just because you're recording it doesn't mean you have to post it and make it public, but just make it a process every single day to hit the record button, record 2 minutes of information, something that you want to say, and then go on with your day. And that really is the learning tool that makes you more comfortable with it. And don't go back and watch it for a period of time. Don't stop and then watch it over and over and over. Save it and then go back and watch it. And it's amazing how quickly you become comfortable and you can see yourself evolve from that scenario. And then when you're going back and seeing it, how much of it you can then take and use, because you're so very specific about just one small subject matter, and then you're able to take all of that and place it together. So I would recommend you start there.
Okay.
Before you make it real, just start recording and talking.
Okay.
And make yourself comfortable with it. And everybody today has all the technology in the palm of their hand to do this. And then you can take it to the next level by coming into a studio like this if you wanted to do something even more polished or on a larger scale as far as production work, because there is a system and structure to the process. And one of the things that we've created here in the studio for everybody is access to that system and structure so that you can make it as efficient and user-friendly as possible, but also not completely consume all of your time. Because that also is one of the downfalls, is if you don't have the system and structure, then all of a sudden it just becomes this massive consumption. So there are lots of steps forward that we hope we're able to impart with brokers and help them kind of ease down this path, because as we market in our arena what we do in our relationships with brokers, we see the same things, and it's how do we get in. A lot of the same challenges are proving to align. Where do you see you wanting to be this time next year in this arena, and how you want to hope to set some goals to achieve utilizing social media?
I hope that this time next year I will back and say I was proud of the fact that I put social media content out there twice a month or 3 times a month. I don't know what that goal is quite yet.
Sure.
But I would like there to be a consistency on a periodic basis throughout the year. And it's useful information.
Right.
For folks. And it's not just information about my business. It's more about this is what you need to know about real estate or purchase by as a buyer or as a seller. And then intermingle in that my work, whatever I'm selling that day, or buying that day.
Right.
So yeah, I hope that's what I would like to look back on. December of 2025, say, hey, I did it.
Pick it up walking out the door, pick it up coming in the door.
Yeah.
When you get in the car, there's all different opportune times to do it. And the scheduling of it and the systemizing process is where the solution is for it not becoming a huge part of consuming your time.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, because it is fear of mine too, is consumption.
Right. The big challenge, and a lot of people have talked about this, that as we've gone through the process of creating our studio and other podcasters and other video bloggers and YouTube production people and creating all their programming, it's okay. I've created this episode. Now the stress starts all over again and the clock starts ticking to get to the next episode. And it's real interesting when you walk them through a process of it not needing to be so involved. And when you plan 1 episode versus planning 6 episodes or 6 production pieces, depending on how you want to turn the production down. When you're planning those production pieces, there are now ways to take what you've invested in, be an hour and a half of production time, and turn it into an entire month of media to be released. So you're really obligating yourself on a monthly basis to about 3 hours at a more convenient time, so that you then free yourself up. They set a schedule and everything systematic. So these are the things that a lot of people don't know are available behind the scenes, and being able to help manage with that access and technology, I think will help calm a lot of fears and it not be so overwhelming. Sounds like that's kind of where you're coming from. And that's where I hear a lot of people is how to kind of break through that first threshold. What would you want to know, or what's the most important thing to find out for you to move forward, jumping into the social media, taking that first step?
I guess I don't know which platform to start with.
Okay.
I know which ones I know how to use. One a little bit more I'm comfortable with, other. But I know there's more out there that might be, I don't even really know exactly where to start.
What would be the kind of the best first step? Where to go?
What would be the best first step?
Well, we will behind the scenes answer that question for you, and then follow up with our audience as well. And the only other thing that I have in exploring all video content, where have you been? And you said that you follow a few other brokers who create content and things like that. Is it more of a Facebook type of content? have you ever reviewed the YouTube arena at all other than links or anything like that?
No, other than the links, I've not explored the YouTube not very often in regards to real estate. Those that I have followed have been Instagram.
Instagram for real estate seems to be the most user-friendly tool because it's very quick and easy to post using your phone or whatever your preferred device is. One of the advantages in having a YouTube presence, and a lot of people don't realize this, that you can make your YouTube presence public or private.
Oh.
And you can share your YouTube information specifically with recipients, but it's still not public unless you choose to make it public. And I know for a lot of people, that's a big fear as how much do you make public or how far do you? And I think that that's a huge opportunity for brokers to be able to give a more specific introduction to a potential client, whether it's a buyer or a seller, and having their information on a much more expansive scale that you have the ability to share in a digital platform that's secure as well. So that's something that we're diving into on our side so that you kind of build an arsenal of these communication tools that are evergreen or will last for a significant time that you then have to share in addition to your collateral, or we'll get you the details on how that can work as well. And the great thing is it's all controllable directly from you. So you can go as far or have as much information as you like with a lot of help along. Well, thank you, Heidi, for joining me today. It's been quite wonderful going over all of the information we've talked about. I'm excited to see where you go in 2025 and circling back here and seeing what you've been able to achieve in the social media arena and getting into some of this production. And thank you for joining us today on Mike to Market. Be sure to like and subscribe and leave comments below. We love to read all the comments and follow up with everyone as they've reviewed the episode and ask more questions. Also, don't forget to check out our other programming on Mike to Market, and we will see you in the next episode.
This video is proudly sponsored by Beacon Davenport Incorporated, Seattle's premier home staging company, transforming homes and maximizing value one stunning space at a time. Ready to sell faster and for more? Visit beacondavenport.com today and see how we can stage your next success. This video was recorded and produced by Just Talk Studios, your go-to destination for professional podcasting, video production, and content creation in Bellevue, Washington. Ready to elevate your brand with high-quality content? Visit justtalkstudios.com and let's bring your vision to life.